We think the battle is out there between conservatives and liberals, the past and the future, the old world and the new. But what if the real war is inside us?
That really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? It deserves a pause. Because we spend so much energy, focusing on the opposition outside,
Hmm.
but often the most intense conflict is actually internal. If you're listening right now, perhaps just take a moment,
Yeah.
breathe,
Okay.
and just notice what stirs in your body. Is there maybe a sudden, sharp feeling of defensiveness when we even say the word battlefield?
Or maybe just exhaustion.
Yeah.
That feeling of being worn down by it all.
Exactly. That deep, weary fatigue from all the arguments online and off. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a flicker of curiosity, a
Mhm.
sense of, what's this about?
And curiosity is, well, it's really key here, isn't it? Because what we're exploring today suggests we're dealing with something much deeper than just, say, conflicting political views.
Absolutely. Our research, looking across psychology and neuroscience, it really points to this idea. Every argument, every standoff, when things get really heated,
Yeah.
ultimately it's a nervous system searching for safety, trying to feel secure.
So it really boils down to our most basic instincts.
Pretty much. When we look at the big currents in society, the drive to keep things as they are versus the push for change, we're essentially watching two primal survival strategies play out.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, you've got one side guarding order, sometimes quite rigidly, because their deepest fear is chaos, things falling apart.
Right, the fear of loss.
Exactly. And then the other side fights really hard for change, sometimes relentlessly, because they fear stagnation, being stuck, limited, repeating old harm.
A fear of limitation.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And both positions, fundamentally, are rooted in trying to survive in a world that often feels, complex and overwhelming.
And this isn't just abstract stuff happening in Parliament or on the news.
Yeah.
It plays out in really personal, sometimes quite painful ways, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The material we looked at gives some really striking examples. Like Sarah, you mentioned her. She just brought up climate policy at a family dinner. Just a mention.
And that was it.
That was the spark. And the silence that followed. It wasn't thoughtful silence. It was defensive. You could feel it, like this cold wave spreading across the table, connection gone, replaced by performance, everyone walking on eggshells.
Gosh, yeah. Words becoming walls, as you said. We
Mhm.
see that too with the church congregation example, splitting over a leadership vote.
People who shared huge life moments, weddings, funerals, christenings, suddenly they can't make eye contact. The shared faith, the building, it's all still there externally.
But internally.
Internally, the collective nervous system of that community is shattered because the feeling of shared safety has just evaporated.
Or those colleagues in the London office
Yeah.
taking separate lifts. One wears a rainbow lanyard, a clear signal of her values, her identity.
And the other makes a point of not wearing one, or maybe avoids that person.
Exactly. And they might not have exchanged a single political word, not one argument. But their bodies, through what Porges calls neuroception, that unconscious scanning for safety.
Their bodies have already flagged the other person as a potential threat.
Yeah. And the threat is always perceived as, this person challenges something fundamental to me, something that gives my life meaning or structure.
These are quiet battles, aren't they? Silent examples of that internal war, where disagreement hardens into distance and, conviction calcifies into contempt.
And underneath it all, there's that constant hum from the body asking, am I safe? Can I belong here if I show up fully? So we're going to try and map this internal landscape today. We're using a framework that helps move from that reactive state towards more conscious choice. This conversation continues our reflection on The Pathway to Sovereignty by Helen Mudiba.
That's right. It outlines 6 levels, really stages of capacity, that guide us from just reacting towards what she calls inner authorship. Survival, stability, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness, and finally, freedom.
And we're hoping this pathway can help us, and maybe you listening, navigate this complex territory of conflict, both inside and out. Okay, so if we zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture. This polarity, this tension, it seems constant, doesn't it? It's everywhere.
It really is. Politics, obviously, but religion, leadership styles, even family dynamics, it's always there. This ancient dance between holding on to tradition, what's known,
And reaching for the new, the unknown.
Yeah.
That fear of loss versus the fear of limitation again. But why do we get so stuck at the extremes? Why so rigid?
Yeah, good question. And psychology offers some really important clues here. This back and forth between consolidating, building things up, making them solid, sometimes too rigid, and disrupting, tearing things down, demanding change, it's not a new phenomenon.
No.
We can look at Carl Jung, for example, and his concept of enantiodromia.
We touched on this before, but maybe we can unpack it a bit more, especially thinking about how it plays out not just individually, but culturally, too.
Sure. Jung saw that the psyche, and you can extend this to culture, holds opposing forces. Enantiodromia describes this tendency. Well, the tendency for any strong psychological force, if you push it to its absolute extreme,
It flips.
it inevitably flips. It transforms into its opposite. The key mechanism here is suppression. If a group or a political movement or even just one person clings too tightly to one position they see as completely right, let's say extreme order, they are, by definition, pushing down the shadow aspect, the impulse for chaos or freedom or change. That suppressed energy, it doesn't just vanish. It builds up steam in the unconscious, in the shadows, and eventually it erupts, usually as an equally extreme counter-movement.
So the more one side screams for absolute order, the louder the other side screams for disruption. They're kind of creating each other's monsters.
In a way, yes. They feed each other's extremes, and you see this mapped out beautifully in developmental psychology, too. Thinkers like Claire Graves and later the spiral dynamics model, they showed how consciousness seems to evolve through stages that alternate their focus. You get stages focused on structure, rules, hierarchy, maintaining the container. You could call that the conservative impulse.
Right, keeping things stable.
Exactly. And then those are often followed by stages prioritizing autonomy, equality, breaking open or expanding the container. The progressive impulse, it's not like a ladder where one is better. It's more like an oscillation, a necessary rhythm for growth.
And Robert Kegan's work fits in here too, doesn't it? That constant dance he described between needing to belong and needing to be separate, independent.
Kegan's perspective is so useful here. He talks about how we move through life-seeking connection. He calls it fusion. Then needing to assert our unique self, our separation. And ideally, hopefully, moving towards integration, where you can be fully yourself and deeply connected. Kegan suggests that getting really stuck defending a rigid viewpoint often happens when we get arrested in that separation phase.
Stuck in me against the world.
Sort of. We defend our position like our very identity depends on it being separate and distinct. So any challenge to the position feels like an attack on our existence.
Which loops us right back to the body.
Yeah.
Because if the mind feels attacked, the body goes into defense mode.
Exactly. Which brings us to the neuroscience, the mechanics of conviction. And Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory is foundational here.
Right. Tell us about that. The vagus nerve.
Well, Porges mapped how the vagus nerve is central to regulating our autonomic nervous system state. Our body is constantly scanning the environment unconsciously for cues of safety or danger. It's called neuroception.
Below conscious thought.
Completely. Our ability to think clearly, feel empathy, even just make eye contact, it all depends on which state our nervous system is in, safe or threatened.
And when it detects threat, which could be anything from a predator to, say, social rejection, or even just an idea that challenges our worldview,
instantly it shifts into protective states. The older sympathetic system revs us up for fight, getting argumentative, feeling that righteous anger or flight, wanting to withdraw, avoid the conversation, leave the room. But the key for connection, for dialogue, is the newest part, the ventral vagal complex, or VVC. This is the system associated with feeling safe, curious, empathetic, seeing nuance. It's our social engagement system.
And when neuroception flags danger,
the VVC effectively goes offline. It shuts down, handing the controls over to those older, faster fight-or-flight systems. Survival takes priority over connection.
So, going back to the family dinner, when someone digs their heels in defending their views, it's not just them being difficult. It's potentially their VVC having shut down because their body felt existentially threatened by the challenge to their identity.
That's the implication, yes. Curiosity, empathy, nuance, they become physiologically unavailable in that state.
Wow.
And when a core belief, political, religious, whatever, becomes fused with our sense of self, especially if we're stuck in that Kegan separation stage, a challenge to that belief triggers the exact same ancient alarm circuits as a physical threat. The body genuinely can't tell the difference between an attack on your deeply held values and, an attack with a physical weapon.
So heart rate goes up, breathing changes, muscles tense.
All of it. ready for battle. And the capacity for complex thought, for seeing the other person's perspective, it just evaporates. The system is geared only for survival.
Now, some people might hear this and think, okay, but isn't this just giving people an excuse? Calling stubbornness or lack of emotional control trauma or dysregulation. How does this framework address that?
That's a fair challenge. And crucial, the framework, especially as Helen Mudeba presents it, doesn't excuse the behavior, but it introduces the idea of agency within the physiological reality. It's not saying, oh, I can't help it, my nervous system made me do it.
Right.
It's saying sovereignty or freedom comes not from eliminating the threat response, we can't, it's essential for survival, but from noticing it when it arises, and then choosing a different response.
So the shift is internal.
Exactly. It moves the focus from, I have to win this argument, to, hang on, my chest feels tight, my jaw is clenched, I'm activated. What is my body trying to protect right now? It shifts from external battle to internal awareness. And that shift is enormous. It builds capacity.
It feels like that's the key pivot point. When we stop asking who is right and start asking what is each side protecting, that's when the war inside might actually start to soften.
That's the transition, yes.
Okay, so that transition, that pivot, is the pathway we're talking about. We've established that a lot of polarization seems rooted in this basic bodily drive for safety. Now let's flesh out those 6 levels from the framework. This map for moving out of reactivity towards, well, conscious choice.
Yes. But first, let's be really clear what sovereignty means in this context.
Yeah.
It's not about being totally independent, isolated, I don't need anyone.
Oh.
It's the inner capacity to stay present, physiologically regulated, calm enough inside so you can hold complexity, hold paradox, without collapsing into defensive anger or needing to rigidly control everything.
So it's about being able to handle tension, like structure without being rigid, change without it feeling like chaos.
Exactly that. It's an expansion of our internal container. So the levels describe that expansion.
Let's walk through them, maybe using that core question of safety as a guidepost for each level.
Good idea. So level 1 is survival. The absolute dominant question here is, am I safe right this second? Identity is incredibly fragile, defined almost entirely by external threats or the need for validation.
So difference feels like danger.
Directly. If you disagree with me, it feels like you're saying I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, my fragile sense of self might shatter. So your view must be wrong, must be silenced. The nervous system is on high alert, constantly scanning, hypervigilant, very reactive.
Okay. Then we move up to level 2, stability. The question changes a bit here.
It does. It becomes, what can I count on? What's reliable? Here, we're seeking solid ground. We look for it in structures, rules, clear roles, hierarchies, shared group norms.
And there's value in that, obviously. Society needs stability.
Absolutely. There's deep wisdom in stability. But the risk, the shadow side, is rigidity. Safety gets confused with sameness. Things must stay this way because this way feels safe. Any challenge to the established order feels deeply threatening, like a betrayal of the group. We cling to certainty because uncertainty feels like falling.
Okay, but how is that different from level 4, integrity? Because integrity involves standing for something too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do we tell the difference between rigid stability and aligned integrity?
That distinction is absolutely central to the whole practice. The key difference lies in the source of authority. Stability relies on external authority, the rules, the group, the doctrine. I must follow this because it keeps me safe. Integrity relies on internal authority, on aligning with one's own felt sense of truth.
Okay.
The bridge between them is level 3, self-awareness. This is where we start to notice. We notice the cost of our defenses, the arguments, the strained relationships, the inner tension. We begin to witness our own patterns, the snap judgments, the urge to shut down or attack.
And we start asking different questions.
Yes. Questions like, what am I actually protecting here? What am I so afraid will happen if I just soften my grip a little? This level requires the courage to sit with discomfort, with dissonance, to acknowledge that maybe the walls we built for safety have somehow become a prison.
That internal noticing, that honesty, that's what fuels the move to level 4, integrity.
Precisely. Stability was about conforming to the outside. Integrity is about aligning with the inside. It's choosing your own discerned truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means breaking from the group's expectations or challenging your own previous defensiveness.
Yeah, taking responsibility for your part in the dynamic.
Yes. Really looking at where your convictions might have hardened into a need to control others, or where perhaps a genuine love for tradition has become twisted by a fear of loss. This is where we see Linda and Trevor, and the stories we'll discuss, starting to make conscious, often difficult choices.
Okay, the beyond integrity.
We move towards level 5, Wholeness. This is a big leap. It's the capacity to hold paradox, to see that two seemingly opposing things can both be true, even valuable.
Like structure and fluidity, tradition and innovation.
Exactly. Caution and courage, they're not enemies. They can be partners in a healthy system, whether that system is a person, a family, or a society. At this level, you can genuinely appreciate the value in the conservative impulse protecting what's sacred, preserving wisdom, and the value in the progressive impulse expanding what's possible, challenging injustice. And crucially,
Yes.
your sense of security no longer depends on everyone agreeing with you. You can be okay even when others hold very different views.
Wow, that sounds peaceful. And that leads to the final level.
Level 6, freedom. And again, this isn't freedom from difficulty or disagreement, it's freedom within it. It's the ability to choose your response consciously rather than just reacting automatically from that old survival wiring.
Feeling okay in yourself even when things are messy outside.
Feeling fundamentally at home in yourself, regardless of external opposition or ideological storms. You can engage in difficult conversations, notice when your body starts to tighten up, and consciously pause, regulate yourself, and then re-engage from a place of presence, not panic. There's a deep recognition here that my liberation, my ability to breathe freely, is actually connected to everyone else's. It's not a final destination, though. It's a practice, a constant returning.
Let's make this pathway real now with Linda's story. She's 58, deeply committed to her family, her church, valuing order, decency. Her whole world felt built on certainty.
Yes, Linda's sense of safety was completely interwoven with the predictability and shared values of her traditional faith community. So when her son, Daniel, comes out as gay and then leaves home because of the conflict, that certainty just shatters.
Her identity felt demolished.
Completely. As a good mother, as a devout woman, according to her community's definition, her immediate response lands squarely in level 1, survival.
Look like.
Cold fury. Disbelief. That thought, this is not how I raised him. She starts desperately searching scripture, looking for external proof to justify the intense fear that's flooding her system.
And the fear wasn't just about Daniel's choices.
No, it was deeper. It was the existential terror of, what if I'm wrong? What if everything I've built my life on is flawed? The grief over Daniel's physical absence was real, but almost secondary to the terror of her own foundation crumbling. Her body was experiencing this as trauma. Her known world had effectively ended.
So she tries to regain her footing at level 2, stability.
Exactly. She throws herself into church activities, committees, anything to be surrounded by voices that confirm her worldview, her rightness. It's a frantic scramble to rebuild those familiar walls.
But it doesn't quite work.
It provides a temporary structure, but it feels brittle. She's choosing the idea of certainty over the reality of connection, and her body knows the difference. She hears talk about those people, and it suddenly feels harsh, lacking compassion. She finds herself weeping unexpectedly during a sermon about God's love because it feels conditional, hollow. The rigidity meant to keep her safe is actually making her deeply unhappy.
So something has to give. The move to level 3, self-awareness. How does that happen for Linda?
It's driven by the sheer weight of her grief, which isn't lifting, it's physical, unrelenting. She finally agrees to see a therapist, and the therapist doesn't challenge her beliefs directly, but asks those crucial questions. What are you really afraid will happen if you reach out to Daniel? What's the catastrophe you imagine?
And through therapy, maybe journaling.
Yes, journaling becomes key, slowing down, writing it out. It reveals the core fear beneath the righteousness. If I accept him, truly accept him, I fear I'll lose myself. I'll be cast out by my community. Maybe my whole life, my sacrifices were wasted on believing the wrong thing. She has this painful realization. Certainty wasn't faith. It was a fortress against fear, and now she's trapped inside it, alone.
That's a huge moment, and that insight fuels the courage for level 4, integrity.
It does, the internal truth. The simple, powerful love for her son and the ache of his absence finally outweighs the need for external validation and the comfort of her defensive anger. She makes a choice aligned with that love. It's a monumental step for her. She texts Daniel. Just 3 words. I miss you.
Wow. And they meet.
They meet for coffee, and this is where she practices sovereignty, maybe for the first time in this context. She makes a conscious effort to just listen, to really hear him.
Not planning her response, not defending herself?
No. She focuses on regulating her own body, noticing the urge to argue, to justify, to explain her past actions, and she just breathes through it. She lets Daniel's words about his pain, his loneliness, his shame actually land. It's incredibly difficult, requires immense internal work in the moment. She leaves feeling grief, yes, but it's a different kind of grief. It's grief that connects rather than separates.
That sounds like metabolizing the pain rather than just reacting to it.
Beautifully put. And over time, this leads her towards level 5, wholeness. She starts exploring a different kind of faith community, one where questions are welcomed, not seen as threats. She begins to understand that tradition doesn't have to mean rigidity. It can be alive. It can breathe through love.
And her relationship with Daniel.
She starts listening to him differently, not trying to fix him or change him back, but just wanting to know him, hear about his partner, his job, his life, his joys. And this act of simple, non-judgmental presence, the source material notes, feels profoundly spiritual to her, like prayer. She's integrating her value for tradition with a newfound openness.
Holding both.
Holding both. And this allows her to arrive at level 6. Freedom. She no longer needs Daniel or the world to fit neatly into her old boxes for her to feel okay. There's a deep, quiet peace inside her now. It's not the brittle peace of being right. It's the resilient peace of being whole. She can welcome Daniel and his partner into her life fully. The external conflicts with her old community might remain, but the war within her has ended.
It makes you wonder, what if certainty was never meant to protect us, but to remind us how deeply we long to belong?
A powerful thought.
Okay, let's switch perspectives now to Trevor. He's younger, 33, a digital strategist, very articulate, very committed to social justice, fighting for a better world, but maybe uncompromising and exhausted.
Yes, Trevor's identity is completely fused with his activism, his rightness on the issues. His conviction is his armor. But underneath, there's a burnout, an edge of desperation, perhaps. His crisis hits hard and fast. A flippant comment made privately gets leaked, twisted out of context.
And the outrage machine he was part of turns on him.
Instantly. The very weapon he used public condemnation is now aimed squarely at him. The backlash is immediate, overwhelming.
His response, pure level 1, survival, I imagine.
Absolutely. Complete nervous system collapse. He's described as scrolling through comments, heart-pounding, hand-shaking, panic. He tries to explain, apologize, clarify, but it's useless. The online mob, as he experiences it, has already passed judgment. His body is registering this massive social rejection as an immediate life-threatening event. His VBC, his social engagement system, is completely offline.
So he withdraws.
Physically, yes. But mentally, he tries to find footing back in level 2. Stability. He digs into his old narrative. He rationalizes his anger, his bitterness, telling himself it's justified righteous purpose. They're the hypocrites, he thinks. I'm still on the right side.
Clinging to that ideological framework for safety.
Desperately. Because underneath, there's this terrifying whisper. What if I'm not the good guy? What if I actually became the kind of person I was fighting against? That thought is unbearable, so the rigid ideology is the only defense he has left.
But like Linda, that defense is brittle. It doesn't bring peace. What prompts his shift to level 3? Self-awareness.
Debilitating panic attacks. They become so frequent, so intense, he can't ignore them. A close friend gently intervenes, creating a safe enough space for Trevor to admit, maybe for the first time, that the activism had become, well, less about justice and more about something else.
Like what?
Like control, like feeling powerful in a world where he felt vulnerable, like proving his moral superiority. It was avoidance.
And this leads him to seek help.
Reluctantly at first, but the panic attacks push him. He starts therapy, specifically somatic work, using approaches like Dr. Peter Levine's somatic experiencing. This is crucial. He starts to grasp that he can't just think his way out of this physiological panic. He has to work with his body.
Which moves him into level 4, integrity. How does that unfold somatically?
His coach or therapist guides him away from the story of the injustice, they wronged me, and towards the sensation in his body. Where do you feel the anger, Trevor? Notice the heat behind your eyes. Feel the tightness in your chest. Just stay with it. Breathe into it.
Not trying to fix it, just notice it.
Exactly. Allowing the sensation to be there, to move, without needing to act on the impulse to fight or flee. And by choosing presence over reaction, by staying with the physical discomfort.
He finds what's underneath.
He finds the layers beneath the rage. Deep grief, acute loneliness, this profound, unmet need to feel like he mattered, that he belonged. He has this gut-wrenching realization he'd been using outrage as a shield against his own vulnerability. Constant activism was a way to avoid stillness, avoid feeling the emptiness inside. Choosing to feel that vulnerability, that's the act of integrity. It's choosing internal truth over the comfort of defensive anger.
That's powerful. And journaling helps him integrate this in level 5.
Yes.
Wholeness.
Yes. Journaling reveals the high cost of needing to be right, needing to control the narrative. He has this epiphany. Rigid progressivism and rigid conservatism, they're mere images, aren't they?
How so?
Both are desperate attempts to make the chaotic world feel safe by forcing it to conform to a specific ideal. Both claim absolute moral certainty. Both often rely on demonizing the other to maintain their own sense of righteousness.
So he doesn't abandon his values.
No, not at all. But he holds them differently, with more humility, with an awareness of his own shadow, the parts of himself he'd projected onto those he disagreed with. Justice stops being about winning arguments online and starts being about real-world connection and action.
Which brings him to level 6, freedom. How does his activism look now?
He re-engages, but differently. With presence, not frantic urgency, he listens more than he talks. When he feels his body start to tighten in a debate, that familiar heat rising, he consciously pauses, breathes, regulates.
Choosing his response.
Choosing his response. He starts getting involved in local, practical projects, building relationships with people across the political spectrum, people he previously would have dismissed.
And finds value in that.
Finds it transformative. The source mentions this feeling of lightness, of relief, after having dinner with someone whose views he once found utterly abhorrent. He realizes genuine change, sustainable change, happens through that difficult, messy process of connection, not through condemnation from afar. Vulnerability becomes his strength.
Maybe the real revolution isn't shouting louder, but having the courage to pause.
What if the courage to pause is the real revolution? When you look at Linda and Trevor side by side, they're from completely different worlds, different generations, opposite ends of the political spectrum, seemingly.
Yeah, they'd probably never meet, or if they did.
Exactly. Yet they walked the exact same inner path. Their stories reveal this fundamental truth about our polarized world. Underneath the specific beliefs, the arguments,
Implicitly fear.
it's the same fear of losing safety. Both mistook the intensity of their conviction for the depth of connection. Whether it was Linda's conservative rigidity or Trevor's progressive outrage, at its root, it was fear wearing the mask of certainty.
And this connects back to trauma, doesn't it? You mentioned Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's insight earlier.
Yes, his idea that trauma isn't just the bad event, but what happens inside us in the absence of an empathetic witness, it resonates deeply here.
So Linda's rigidity.
Was in part her body holding the unprocessed fear of her known world collapsing, of losing her identity and community without anyone truly seeing or holding that fear with her.
And Trevor's outrage.
Was fueled by unmetabolized grief and loneliness, desperately seeking a place to land, a justification, because his vulnerability hadn't found a safe witness either. The key insight from both stories is
Yes.
when they finally found a regulated space, whether in therapy, through somatic work, or even just deep self-witnessing, a space safe enough to actually feel what had been too overwhelming to feel before,
Their relationship to their values changed.
it shifted fundamentally from rigid defense to flexible conviction, from brittle certainty to open curiosity. They didn't necessarily change what they cared about, but how they held it.
Okay, that makes sense for an individual.
Yeah.
But how does this scale up? If the solution isn't agreeing on ideology, but achieving regulation, what does that mean for society?
We have to start thinking about society itself as a kind of vast, interconnected, collective nervous system.
Okay, like a network.
Exactly. Millions of individual nervous systems all influencing each other, co-regulating or dysregulating each other. When large numbers of people are experiencing sustained threat, economic insecurity, social upheaval, environmental anxiety, political instability,
The whole system shifts.
the collective nervous system shifts into a defense posture. The collective VVC, if you like, goes offline.
And we see the results in public life.
We see the physiological defense states playing out on a mass scale. The surge in demand for authoritarian leaders who promise simple order that's a collective fight response. The frantic pace of online call-out culture. Ideological policing on all sides, that's the hypervigilance of fight-flight. It's mass dysregulation manifesting as tribalism and certainty addiction.
This is where Jonathan Haidt's work on moral foundations theory is helpful too, isn't it? Those different moral taste buds we all have.
Incredibly helpful. Haidt identified these core foundations: care harm, fairness cheating, loyalty betrayal, authority subversion, sanctity degradation, and liberty oppression.
And the key is that conservatives and progressives don't have different sets of morals. They just prioritize these foundations differently.
Precisely. Conservatives tend to weigh loyalty, authority, and sanctity more heavily. Progressives tend to prioritize care, fairness, and liberty more. Neither is inherently better, they're just different tunings.
So how does regulation affect this?
When we're individually and collectively regulated, operating from those higher levels of the sovereignty pathway, like wholeness,
Level 5.
yes, we have the capacity to see the value in all the foundations. We can understand why loyalty is crucial for community cohesion, why tradition, sanctity holds wisdom, and why fighting oppression, liberty, or caring for the vulnerable, care, is vital. We can hold the complexity.
But when we're dysregulated, stuck down in survival or stability,
We collapse into tribalism. We decide only our tribe's preferred foundations matter. Anyone prioritizing the others isn't just wrong, they're immoral, dangerous. How could they possibly value that over this? The capacity for integration vanishes.
so the goal isn't to get everyone to agree politically.
Impossible. The goal is integration. It means enough of us becoming internally regulated enough, often enough, to hold the tension of disagreement without constantly falling into dehumanization. When Linda and Trevor regulate themselves, they don't just help themselves, they contribute, infinitesimally but importantly, to regulating the collective field.
It really comes back to the body then. The nervous system doesn't care about left or right, conservative or liberal.
Not fundamentally. It cares about safety, it cares about belonging. When we learn to regulate ourselves, we reconnect with ourselves. And when we reconnect with ourselves, we remember our shared humanity. We regain the capacity for connection, even across deep divides.
So maybe try this right now as you're listening. Just notice, where in your body do you feel that tightening, that tension, when you think about defending one of your core beliefs? Your stomach,
Yeah.
your jaw, your shoulders.
Mm.
And just see if you can breathe into that spot, gently. Not to make it go away, but just to acknowledge it. To give your nervous system a signal of presence, a chance to maybe downshift from red alert.
So this whole deep dive today, it hasn't really been about saying one ideology is right and another is wrong. It's been about looking within, about integrating those parts of ourselves that often feel split, that deep human need for structure and safety, and that equally deep human hunger for freedom and change.
And realizing the work starts in the body. Our ability to act wisely, to respond rather than react, depends so much on our capacity to stay present within ourselves, especially when things get heated. So as you go about your day after listening, maybe carry a few gentle prompts with you. Not as problems to solve, but just things to notice, to mull over.
First, which part of you genuinely fears chaos, disorder, things falling apart? And which part of you fears stagnation, being stuck, limited? Can you acknowledge both are real? Both live inside you. Part of you craves certainty, another part yearns for breakthrough.
Yeah, they're both there. Second, where physically do you feel it when you feel unheard or misunderstood? That knot in the gut, the tight chest, the clenched fists. Could you start using that physical sensation as a signal? Not proof that you're right, but just a signal. Ah, okay, my nervous system is detecting threat here. I'm activated.
Just that noticing is huge. And third, what might it actually feel like in your body, in your life, to hold both things? To hold a deep love for order, for tradition, for what feels stable, and remain genuinely open to change, to the new, to what feels disruptive but necessary. That's the ongoing practice, isn't it? The work of becoming whole, choosing integrity moment by moment.
Choosing integrity over the temporary comfort of defense.
Because peace, real peace, isn't found in everyone finally agreeing with us. It's found in awareness, in understanding that what we defend most fiercely on the outside is often connected to something that once kept us safe or felt like safety on the inside.
If this exploration of the war within has struck a chord, if you feel drawn to continue this journey, the framework offers pathways. You can start by locating yourself with the free guide and meditation called Where Are You on the 6 Levels?
It's a really helpful resource just to get a sense of where your nervous system tends to operate from, where it feels safe, and what capacities might be ready to emerge next.
And for a more sustained daily practice, there's the 21-day journal, Your Path to Choosing Joy. It's designed as a gentle, reflective journey to help you define and align with what truly feels alive and meaningful for you, stepping into that regulated truth day by day.
These are slow practices, really. Tender ways of coming home to yourself.
When the war within us softens, the world outside remembers how to listen.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we rise from stress. From fear to peace, from shame to grace, climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel unsafe, too much to bear, you shut down a flare, you vanish or glare, your heart beats fast, your breath runs tight, you just want out or to make it right. That's survival, the you that just wants to survive.
What you feel is complete powerlessness, a cry for safety, not for success.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we rise from stress, from fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty.
When you feel the pressure to fix or prove, you hustle hard, you never stop or move. You shrink your voice to keep control. You manage the threat, but it takes a toll. There's stability, the you that's trying to keep things intact.
What you feel is the pattern unwind. You are no longer lost in the mind. Climb the staircase, breath by breath. Let presence be your steady lift. From fear to peace, from shame to grace, climb the staircase to sovereignty.
When you feel the courage to live what's true, to honor your values and what you do, you choose your voice without defense, even if the world stays tense. That's integrity, the you that remembers what you stand for.
What you feel is steady ground. Truth walks with you, strong and sound. Climb the staircase, breath